Today, we're going to dive into a short, but wow, an incredibly powerful story from the final week of Jesus' life. It's this really intimate scene, kind of the quiet before the storm. But it has this single dramatic act of devotion that just sparks a huge conflict and reveals a really profound truth. And really, this is the question at the heart of the whole story. How do you measure value? Is it about the price tag, about practical outcomes, or is there another kind of worth, something you just can't put a number on? This story slams those two ideas right up against each other. All right, so let's set the stage. To really feel the power of this moment, we've got to know exactly where we are and when all this is going down. So Matthew 26, verse 6 tells us we're in Bethany. It's a village right outside Jerusalem, just days before the Passover. And Jesus is at a meal at the house of a guy called Simon the leper. Now that name itself is a huge clue. It almost certainly means he was someone Jesus had healed. So you can imagine the room is already filled with this sense of gratitude and deep personal history. And it's right into this quiet, intimate dinner that a woman walks in and does something completely unexpected, something extravagant. Verse 7 describes this woman coming up to Jesus with an alabaster box. It's filled with this precious ointment, and she just pours it on his head. Now, what's really interesting is that if you hop over to the Gospel of John, he actually tells us who this is. It's Mary, the sister of Lazarus, the man Jesus had famously raised from the dead. And knowing that just adds this incredible layer of personal depth to what she's doing. And listen, this was not just any old jar. The alabaster box itself was a total luxury item. Think of it like the fanciest designer packaging you can imagine today. Just seeing this beautiful, expensive stone would tell you that whatever was inside was worth a fortune. And the ointment inside? It was nard, or spikenard. This was a premium oil imported from far away. Its scent was so strong it would have just exploded into the room, filling the entire house. This wasn't just a gift, it was a total sensory overload for everyone who was there. And here's the thing about these flasks. You had to break the seal to open it. It was an all-or-nothing kind of deal. She wasn't giving a little bit. She was pouring out the entire thing, holding nothing back. This was a gesture of complete, unreserved, all-in devotion. But not everyone in the room saw this as a beautiful moment. Not at all. In fact, for some of them, it was just outrageous. The moment that fragrance filled the air, so did the sense of indignation. So in verses 8 and 9, the disciples immediately jump in. And from their very practical, logical point of view, this is a shocking misuse of money. I mean, their argument sounds pretty good, right? To what purpose is this waste? You can almost hear them. Think of how many poor people could have been helped with that money. They don't see devotion, they see pure waste. And they weren't just guessing about how much this was worth. The Gospel of John's account actually gives us a number: 300 denarii. So what does 300 denarii even mean? Well, it was the average salary for a full year of hard work. A whole year. Can you imagine someone taking their entire annual income and, in a single moment, just pouring it out? In our money, we'd be talking tens of thousands of dollars. And this brings up an even deeper question. When you think about that kind of value, you have to wonder, was this just a luxury item for her? Or could it have been something much, much more? Could it have been her entire financial future? Some scholars think this perfume might have actually been her dowry. And in that culture, a dowry was a woman's financial safety net. It was her insurance policy, against becoming a widow or getting divorced. It was literally her life security. So if this was her dowry, she wasn't just giving an expensive gift. She was giving up her future and placing her total trust in him. So the disciples see waste. Mary shows incredible devotion. So how does Jesus see it? Well, he steps in and completely reframes the whole thing, giving it a meaning that nobody else in that room could have possibly imagined. In verses 10 and 11, Jesus defends her right away. He isn't saying that caring for the poor doesn't matter. What he's doing is pointing out how unique, how fleeting this specific moment is. He says the poor you will always have with you, but you will not always have me. The opportunity to honor him like this is about to disappear forever. This slide just lays it out so clearly, doesn't it? On one side, you have the disciples with their spreadsheets and their calculators, and all they see is a quantifiable loss, a waste. On the other side, Jesus redefines it as an unquantifiable good work, a profound, personal, and perfectly timed act of honor. And here it is, in verse 12. This is the stunning twist. Jesus reveals this deeper prophetic meaning to what she's done. He says, "She did it for my burial." All of a sudden, this isn't just an act of honor in the moment. It's a preparation for his own coming death. With that one sentence, Jesus elevates her loving gesture into a key part of his passion story. She, maybe without even knowing it, becomes the very first person to anoint his body for the tomb. Her private act of devotion becomes a public prophecy. But Jesus doesn't just stop there, defending her and reinterpreting her action. He makes one last powerful proclamation that makes sure her legacy will last forever. I mean, this is just an incredible promise in verse 13. Jesus declares that her story is now going to be a permanent part of the gospel message itself. The very act that was called a momentary waste is now guaranteed an eternal memorial. Her story will be told as long as his story is told. And so that's what we're left with. What is it that makes an act of devotion timeless? In this story, it had nothing to do with being practical or what made economic sense. It was about an extravagant, sacrificial, and perfectly timed expression of love. You see, the disciples calculated the cost, but Mary, she understood the worth of the moment. And that is what has been remembered forever.